Hi everyone, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm going to be creating a really fun card today using some mixed media for the background, and I'm going to be using the gorgeous red rubber floral easel stamp set. This is just absolutely stunning. The artwork on this stamp set is just, I could not wait to use this set, and it works so beautifully with the whole collection with this release. And you can see there's a coordinating die set that die cuts out absolutely every stamp, so it cuts out the sentiments and all of the different imagery that's part of the floral easel set. So just so gorgeous, so fun, so many things you can do with this set. It's very versatile. So like I said, I really wanted to use some mixed media to create a background. And for some reason, I don't know what happened to the footage of me ink blending, but I ink blended some vintage photos, some Uncharted Mariner and antique linen distress oxide inks onto some paper. So that's really easy to do. You've probably seen tons of ink blending before. I just took a piece of heavier paper and blended on those three colors of distress oxide inks. And then what I wanted to do with this paper is I wanted to do a little bit of wet media, wet product on top of the dry distress oxide. So what I did was I took my tonic non-stick mat and I put it onto my table, and I just took my different ink pads, same three colors, and I put them onto that nonstick mat so that we get that beading, that really nice beading happens. So you can get some really cool effects. And I added some water to that, and then I just dipped my paper into the ink over on the right there, as you can see. And I'm just going to keep repeatedly doing that same thing. And I'll take my Reinker heat tool in between and I'll dry it. I'll also use my paper towel roll to help dry it as well. So I'll use the heat tool first. And then for any really excess pooling of water that's happening, I'll go ahead and take that paper towel roll and pick up any of the excess moisture. And in that way, you don't get a ton of warping on your paper, but you still get some nice effects with that water and the ink. And I like the lines that are being created, and the different textures and looks and patterns and droplets and all kinds of really fun different looks. Then I'm just going to go in with a fan brush and I'm going to pick up the extra ink that's still left on my mat, and I'm just going to splatter that onto the background as well to create even more of a fun effect. Once that's dry, I took my Scallop A2 frames from Honeybee, one of my favorite die sets. I go back to this die set over and over again. If you don't have this one, it's a great one. And I'm just going to use that frame to kind of help me decide what portion of this background I want to die cut for my background for my card. So once I'm happy with what colors I'm capturing and the different patterns and so on, I go ahead and run that through my die cutting machine, and I'm left with this really beautiful card front for my card base. And I'm going to be using a white top folding A2 size card base. And you can just see how this size of scallop that I chose is going to leave some really nice white framing margin around the outside edges of this background. So that's what this is going to look like. And I'm going to go ahead and continue to work away. I'm going to put the stamps from the floral easel set into my MISTI. And I just have a piece of watercolor paper cut down so that I'm able to fit all of the different images from that set that I want to watercolor onto that watercolor paper. So I'm going to use the easel and then 3 of the smaller floral images and go ahead and stamp those out with a waterproof ink. And this is a pigment ink that is slow drying, and I'm going to add a little bit of clear embossing powder over top of that. And I'm just going to spread that over all of the stamping that I've done here. And once I've got that covered with my clear embossing powder, I'll go ahead and melt that. And that's going to create some ridges on my paper. And it's going to really make the watercoloring super, super easy because it kind of creates these little wells so that the water will stay within that area where you can see that embossing. And so really, really easy, really fun. And it also creates just a really, really vibrant black. Now I'm going to take the Distress ink, not oxide, but Distress ink re-inkers in the same colors that I've used of oxide ink. And I'm going to I actually put out way too much. You only need just even a tiny little drop, like the size of a pinhead for the tiny little bit of watercoloring that I'm going to be doing here. And I'm going to watercolor all of the florals. And so I go in with my wet, clean brush and I put just clean water, clear water down on the paper first. And then I go in and pick up the pigment and I drop the pigment in. And if I want it to be lighter, I take my brush and clean it and dry it, and I pick up some of the pigment to lighten it up. But if I want to darken it, I take my clean brush and I pick up the full strength paint or ink, and I drop it in to create darker areas. So really, really simple, easy way to color. So if you're that person that struggles with coloring images and maybe you don't like colored pencils, and maybe you don't like alcohol markers, or maybe you're not confident with those things and you want a really simple, easy method to watercolor, or maybe you're the person that loves to color all different ways. This is a really fun way to color images, and I honestly think it's the easiest. I wanted to do a combination of the orange and blue flowers in all of the different areas. And so I'm just basically going back and forth, doing a blue, then an orange, so that a blue is going to be next to an orange, and so on and so forth. And then I work the antique linen in there as well. So we end up with Uncharted Mariner, Vintage Photo, and antique linen flowers. You could also use Rusty Hinge here as well. I think I used Vintage Photo, but you could easily use Rusty Hinge. And it's just a really great color combination. It's just that orangey color with the beautiful blue and the antique linen. Antique linen happens to be one of my very most favorite distress colors. It is so great as a neutral that just goes along with everything. And Uncharted Mariner, I do believe, is my favorite blue. I love it. It is just so gorgeous, and it looks really pretty when it's in its full intensity, but it also looks really nice when it's faded out. So you can see that I use it in its faded out version in lots of instances here. Now, when this is all dry, you can go back and you can darken up any of the areas if you want once your watercolor is dry. And in that way, you can layer your colors as well, which is really fun too. I wet down the easel with clear, clean water. And then you can see here I went in with the antique linen. Now I'm just going to darken it up a little bit. Now I'm going to go in with, and I think here at the last step, I'm going to go in with a clean brush and pick up some of the pigment just to vary the lights and darks. This is and I'm just looking on my desk here, this is Gathered Twigs, again, Distress Ink Reinker. And I wanted to do the base of the easel, the wooden parts, with this color. Now again, I'm going in, putting the water down first, then you can see me going in full strength, and then I'll clean my brush and I'll pull that full strength ink out to fade it out. And in that way, you can shade. So here you can see that darker area, then I clean my brush, then I go in and pull that darker pigment out so that it fades out and it looks like a variated color or tone of that color, and it just looks really good. So very easy to do. If you have not tried watercoloring yet, but you have Distress Ink Reinkers, this is a really great way to do it. You can actually use just the Distress Ink pads, or you could also do this with the oxides. Try whatever it is that you have on hand. Experiment with it. I love to use just like actual watercolors too, but you can use anything. You can use your Caron markers. You can use whatever you'd like. This is the Lovely Layers Herb Garden die set. I wanted to add some other die cuts here in white. So I took some of these foliage pieces from this set and I die cut them. I wasn't really sure which pieces I was going to use, but I knew that I wanted some white pieces here. And what I ended up doing was I cut those apart for just like some little tiny sprigs. And you'll see how I use those here in a minute. Now I'm just going to use some foam tape. This is the Altenew 1-inch foam tape. And I'm going to just back my card front here with this foam tape to give it a little bit of dimension. So I'll just trim this out with some scissors that are Teflon so that the foam doesn't stick to them, which is handy. Take that release paper off the back. I'm going to take this partially off camera here so that I can get my head over it, and I'm just going to center that onto my card base here. And I just love that white margin around the edges. I think it looks really nice, and it's going to coordinate nicely too with these white die cuts that I'm accenting the colors with here. And I'm going to do some white splatter too, and that's going to look really nice here with the different white bits. I'm just taking some foam squares and I'm going to add those onto my die cut piece here for my floral easel. I also am going to use some foam strips for the legs of the easel. And in that way, I'm going to get quite a bit of dimension. You may be that card maker that doesn't like to add a ton of dimension to your project. You certainly don't have to do that. You can definitely glue any of these pieces down flat. It is totally whatever you'd like to do. If you're hand delivering the card and you like dimension, it makes sense to add the foam adhesive to your project. If you're mailing it and you want to avoid the extra charges for a thicker card, you could definitely just glue these down with your liquid adhesive. Now I'm just going to take the release paper off the back of all of these different little foam bits and add this onto my card front. And I really like how this looks. I think all of the different imagery that's part of this collection is so pretty. I love that the sewing machine is really cool, and I really love that floral cluster of paint brushes as well. That's part of this set. That's so cute too. So you can combine these however you'd like and just create some really fun projects. So now I've got all of these little embellishment pieces here that I've die cut with the coordinating dies with Floral Easel. And you can see how those are just going to layer nicely over top of the different areas here. So again, I'm going to add even more foam adhesive, even more dimension, just because when I'm creating these embellishing clusters, I like to do that. I like to have a little bit of space between my layers. I think it just looks more effective that way. But again, it won't look bad if you choose not to use the foam. It'll still look great. And it's nice to have those options with these different coordinating stamps to create these. Now this piece here that I've got at the top, I end up cutting that in half. Not sure if I show that on camera, but I just slice it right in half, I believe. And then I split it so that I put part of it at the top. And then here you can see the other half of it here. I'm going to put my honeybee glue on it and just stick it in behind there. And that's just going to add just that little bit of an extra layer and interest behind there. So we've really got some fun layering going on here. And look at that great background. I love the inking. And even though some of the cool parts of it got covered up, that's fine. It's just really, I think it looks really cool. Now I'm going to take, like I said, these sprigs from the herb garden set, and I'm going to just cut them apart, and then I'll just use them, you see here, just to poke in behind. And that's just going to create a little bit of extra. And I love that white. I think that almost creates like some white space and sort of like a little place for your eye to rest. I think it looks really nice. And now you can just see the logical spot for our sentiment, which is right on that easel. So I'm going to just finish up gluing down my little sprigs here. If you haven't heard me talk lately about how much I love the honeybee glue, it is so good. And I actually need to get another order in for more honeybee glue because the winter's coming here in Canada, and we don't order glue to Canada in the wintertime unless it's okay to freeze. I actually forget. Honeybee's glue might be okay to freeze. I forget that. Now, the Floral Easel set has so many great sentiments. I love that just a note for this one for an upcoming card that I know I want to send. And so I'm going to use the just a note one. I'm going to stamp that out with some black ink and go ahead then again and use the coordinating die. I'll die cut that and I will be good to go. Now, before I add my sentiment on there, I want to do a little bit of white splatter. And I've just got some white paint watered down here on my desk. I've put the card in my splat box so that I don't end up with paint everywhere. And I'll just go ahead and tap that brush here with my honeybee craft tool and tap on just some really nice fine splatter. I love how that looks. It's just going to finish it off so nicely. It's just a really fine, really subtle little bit of extra detail on the project. And I'll go ahead and set that aside to dry. And once that's all dry, I'll be ready to go ahead and add my sentiment. Now I am going to add some more of those little tiny foam strips onto the back of the coordinating, or onto the back of the sentiment, and I'll be ready to add the final touch to my project. I am going to be adding some honeybee enamel stickers. The ones that I'm going to be adding are Crystal Glimmer enamel stickers. I'm not sure if they're still available. I'll try to link to them. If they're not, you can use any gems or stickers that you have to coordinate with your project. I love these ones just because they are really subtle, but they're really sparkly, and I love them. I thought they were just the perfect final touch for my project. While I'm adding those, friends, I will just mention that I have linked up in the description box to all of the different products that I've used from Honeybee Stamps. I love this release, and it is just full of so many beautiful, beautiful stamps, coordinating dies, stencils, you name it, all the good things, and love it. Love, love, love. And don't forget that you can also be eligible for that freebie of pattern paper. So make sure that you look for that, look into that, check into that on the website, and have a wonderful day, friends, as you're watching me finish up adding these last little enamel dots. I am almost done, and I had so much fun creating this, and I'm looking forward to using all of the different little bits and pieces of this collection. So much fun. So many great cards and projects that you can create for your crafty friends and your loved ones. I think it's just a really neat theme for this collection, and it's a good one. Have an amazing day, friends. I hope to see you again very soon. Take care, stay safe, stay well. Bye-bye.